IDs ambao watu wanachukua kwamba itakuwa sasa bure, haiwezi chukuliwa kwa kulipa chochote. Na vile nimefika hapa asubuhi, nimepitia ile registration desk ambao tuko na watu na wengi wao walikuwa wanafunzi hivi majuzi, ambao ni karibu 200 tayari wako hapa na wako tayari kuchukua IDs. Sisi tuko tayari kuhakikisha kwamba wamepata bure. Nimemuuliza kijana moja pale anaitwa Ignatius kwa nini alichelewa kuchukua ID. Akaniambia kwamba angeweza kupata hiyo pesa shilingi 300 ilikuwa ni ngumu, na kwa mwaka 3 iliyopita hakuweza kuchukua ID ingawa alikuwa anataka ID hiyo. Kumaanisha kwamba kuna watu wengi sana wamekuwa wakifungiwa nje kwa mambo ya kutafuta riziki ya maisha na kujisikia kwamba wao ni Wakenya, kwa sababu ile walikuwa wanalipishwa shilingi 300 ilikuwa imewafungia nje. Habari nzuri ni kwamba
now, former Meru County Governor Kawira Mwangaza has vowed to clear her name and confront her political opponents in the 2027 general elections. Mwangaza, who served as governor until her ouster, claims that her male political rivals harbored personal vendettas against her and went to extreme lengths to remove her from office, denying her constitutional rights. In a statement, Mwangaza expressed her determination to fight for
the system to remove me from office. Faces of Meru residents who elected me were ignored. Even the courts, which should have been my refuge, were interfered with to block my access to justice. This is not just an attack on me, but an attack on democracy, gender equality, and the rights of every Kenyan woman who aspires to lead. If anyone had doubts on who was behind my impeachment, I invite them to keenly review the swearing-in ceremony of my deputy yesterday. The orchestrators, actors, planners, sponsors, financiers, script writers of my impeachment were overwhelmed by joy. I could no longer hide behind their mask anymore. They all converged at Mwendanto grounds, and one after the other in their speeches took credit of my downfall, with each of them boldly stating the role they played. It is a sad reality that in 2025, women leaders are still subjected to systematic discrimination, harassment, and exclusion. My case is a stark reminder of the barriers women face in politics and the length to which some will go to maintain status quo. I will not be silenced. I will pursue all legal avenues to clear my name, expose the injustices that have been perpetrated against me. This is not just my fight. It is a fight for every woman who dares to dream of leadership in a society that often seeks to crush those who dreams.
Right, moving on, women leaders from Nairobi County are arguing Meru's newly elected governor Isaac Mutuma to appoint a woman as his deputy governor. Speaking to the press in Nairobi, the group emphasized that it will be a matter of justice for the governor to select a woman for the role, citing that the position of governor in Meru was once held by a woman. The women leaders also called on President William Ruto and ODM leader Raila Odinga to support and protect 6 women governors who are still in office following the recent ousting of Kawira Mwangaza from office. The group expressed concern over the increasing marginalization of women leaders in leadership to safeguard the remaining women in governance.
Sisi wa mama tuna fight mpaka tukate kiti ya governor. Tukishapata wanaume wanaingilia, wanatupiga left and right mpaka kiti yetu imeenda. Sasa tumebaki na governors 6. Hatutakubali maneno kama hayo sisi kama wamama. Sisi tunaomba hivi. Saa hii hatujui kesho atakuwa ni mimi ama ni nani. Jua wanaume wametoka nje wanapiga wamama. Kesho hatutajua ni nani. Tunakomea hiyo maneno hiyo maneno iishe na Kawera. Vile Kawera ameenda, hiyo maneno imeisha. Na kama wameendelea, sisi tutaandamana, tutatafuta right yetu, juu sisi we know our rights kama wamama.
It is quite unfortunate that as we make progress in this country, then we are also making a step back. That we had 7 governors, they used to call them G7, and right now it's unfortunate that we are reduced to 6. We hope that whatever is happening in Meru County is happening on merit. And it's not an attack to women in leadership. And it's not an attack to make sure that women don't progress. A woman who went to campaign with her resources and got elected is right now impeached in a manner that doesn't augur well with us fellow women.
Tunawaambia wanaume, mkome na Kawera. Mkome na Kawera. Msijaribu wa mama mmoja tena kwa hao wengine. Tulikuwa tunaomba watu wa Meru. Tumeona kiti ya Kawera imeenda, mwanaume ndiye amechaguliwa, ndiye alikuwa deputy yake. Sasa tunaomba deputy wa Meru awe mama, because hiyo kiti ilikuwa ni ya mama.
Right, moving on, Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret, a level 6 facility, has halted its services in protest of a significant reduction in its budget. The hospital's health workers, who are protesting the budget cut of 3 billion Kenyan shillings, claim the reduction directly affects medical services and funds allocated to their welfare. The workers, who have taken to the streets in protest, argue that the reduced budget will impact not only the quality of care provided to patients, but also their own ability to access necessary medical provisions. Patients at the hospital have expressed their frustration, with many complaining about the disruption in services. The health workers are now calling on the government to intervene and address the issue, seeking a restoration to the funding and ensure the hospital's operation and the well-being of both patients and staff are not compromised.
Budget ya MTRH ilikatwa kwa takribani bilioni 2.3, na hiyo imekuwa ndio janso kubwa katika hii hospitali. Hii hospitali imefika sasa haiwezi kutimisha wajibu wake kulingana na vile ilivyokuwa. Imefika kwamba medical cover ya staff wa MTRH budget yake haikutosha. Sasa hiyo cover haitoshelezi ile matakwa ya wafanyikazi wa rufaa ya hospitali. Namba 2 ni kwamba hospitali iko na madeni kutoka former NHIF na SHA, alafu pension ya wafanyikazi wa hii hospitali haijalipwa kwa takribani miaka 2. Saizi imefika bilioni 1.2. Imefika sasa wauguzi wa hii hospitali walipeana notisi ya siku 21, na hiyo siku yote iliisha jana usiku, na sasa ikabidi wauguzi waanze mgomo rasmi saa 6 usiku, na hiyo mgomo itaendelea mpaka wakati ile serikali itaona umuhimu wa hospitali hii kwa kuhudumia Wanakenya.
All right, Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has revealed that over 1,000 Kenyans are currently being held in foreign prisons for various offenses. Speaking during a meeting with the Dutch Foreign Minister Kasja Ollengren, Mudavadi issued a stern warning to Kenyans against engaging in illegal activities abroad. He emphasized that Kenya should not be associated with illegal businesses, practices, and criminal activities on international stage. Mudavadi disclosed that many of these detained Kenyans are victims of international crime syndicates that lure individuals, often from difficult backgrounds, into participating in illicit activities such as drug trafficking and fraud. He urged Kenyans traveling abroad for business or work to adhere to the laws of the countries they are visiting. The minister called for increased awareness and vigilance among citizens, stressing that the government is committed to ensuring the safety and well-being of Kenyans abroad.
It is unfortunate that a Kenyan is facing this kind of situation. It's not a pleasant situation, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and in particular my PS, has been trying to converse with his counterpart in Vietnam to see if there can be some mitigation in this process. So that is one thing, and we hope that there can be some success so that there is no summary execution as we go ahead. But there are issues that we must also deal with. I reaffirmed Kenya's unwavering commitment to promoting conflict prevention, resolution and stabilization efforts both within the region and globally. I would like to make it clear that Kenya is non-partisan in any of the conflicts in the region. Instead, due to our democratic space and freedom of media, many groups have found Nairobi as a place to communicate. Kenya is committed to finding long-lasting peace and security solutions in the region and welcomes recent developments, including the ongoing EAC SADC process. The issue of drug trafficking, and we are not trying to say she's guilty or not guilty other than what we have as a record from the judicial process in Vietnam. So ours is not about a judgment, but working on that basis. If we want to also send a clear message as a country, we need to be careful that Kenyans who are stepping out into the diaspora do not fall into the trap of engaging in any illegal activities. It's absolutely important that this is taken. We want responsible Kenyans at home, and we equally want responsible Kenyans in the diaspora, in whatever country you are in. We have been at the forefront in promoting bilateral labor agreements, trade, also focusing on responsible mobility of labor and so forth. We've been talking to these things. And one of the things I've been emphasizing is that please, the young Kenyans that are going out, remember that the moment you board a plane and the wheels have lifted, when you land in whatever country you're going into, the laws that apply are not Kenyan laws. They are the laws of that respective country. So please respect the law.
Right, police in Kikuyu, Kiambu County have uncovered a half-an-acre piece of land at the Kidfamako area where the owner has been cultivating bang illegally. The owner, believed to be a Burundian national, along with 2 farm workers, also from Burundi, are yet to be arrested. The discovery was made following a tip-off from local residents. According to Kikuyu Deputy County Commissioner Charles Laboso, the suspects had been growing various types of vegetables and maize near the entrance of the plot to camouflage their illicit activity. However, inside the property, they were cultivating the illegal crop. Although the suspects remains at large, police have launched a manhunt and begun approaching the bank plants. Laboso has called on landowners in the area to remain vigilant, ensuring that no illegal activities take place on developed plots to prevent similar incidents.
Leo asubuhi tumepata ujumbe kwamba kuna mwenye hili shamba ambaye amepanda bangi. Tumepata ujumbe kwamba kando na kupanda mimea ya mahindi, huku ndani kuna mimea ya bangi. Na hata mkiona hapa karibu utaona kwamba wamefanya hata irrigation ili kuhakikisha hii mimea ya bangi imenawiri sana. So tuliweza kukuja hapa na kweli tumethibitisha kwamba kuna mimea ya bangi imepandwa hapa. Sasa ile shughuli ambayo tuko nayo ni kumtafuta mwenye shamba na wale ambao wameajiriwa kufanya hii kazi. Hiyo ndio shughuli ambayo imetuleta hapa pamoja na maafisa wa polisi. Shamba ni kama eneo lake ni kama nusu eka, na kwa sasa hivi tunapozungumza ni kwamba tunatafuta washukiwa wawili, wale ambao walikuwa wameajiriwa hapa, na bila shaka mwenye ploti. So bila shaka tutapata washukiwa watatu. Tungependa kila mtu ambaye ako na shamba ambalo halitumiki waweze kudevelop kwanza. Pili, kama wakati hawaja develop, wajue kwamba ni hatia kutumia shamba kufanya biashara ambayo sio halali, kama kupanda bangi ama kuweka miadarati ama kuuzia pombe ambayo sio halali. So hiyo ndio wito wetu. Namba 2, tungependa hata majirani wawe macho kidogo. At least kuna ile nyumba pale, wangekuwa macho kidogo, wangekundua kwamba hapa sio mimea ya mahindi tu peke yake, ila pia kuna mimea ambayo ingeshukiwa kwamba ni mimea ya bangi. Tungependa tuwe na ushirikiano wa karibu sana na community police na neighborhood.
Ukiingia pale kwa gates utapata huyu mtu alikuwa ameweka camouflage, amepanda sukuma na mahindi karibu na gate. Kwa hivyo wewe ukipita unafikiria ni sukuma na mahindi imepandwa hapa, but ukiingia kidogo unapata amewekelea pesa mingi, kwa sababu amemwaga bolea, ameweka sprinklers such that bangi imepandwa, na ameweka several sprinklers kwa shamba, anamwagilia maji ili bangi imee. Kama wakaaji wa Kidfama, tunatoa mwito kwa wenye mashamba hapa Kidfama kwa ambao hawaja develop, ya kwamba wajue ni nini imepandwa kwa mashamba zao, kwa sababu saa hii serikali na askari wanatembea kwa hizo mashamba, na ukipatikana kwa vitu.
Right, at the same time, security officers in Migori County have confiscated 14 bags of cannabis and 23 tons of explosives used in mining activities during an operation in Taragwiti, Isbanian area located in the western part of Kuria West sub-county. According to Migori County Police Commander Francis Nguli, one suspect was arrested in connection with the illegal substance. Nguli revealed that the seized cannabis had an estimated street value of 12.9 million Kenya shillings. He also issued a stern warning to illegal miners who purchase explosives in violation of the law, emphasizing that such activities endanger the safety of the public and undermine national security. The police commander urged members of the community to continue collaborating with law enforcement agencies to combat the illegal trade in drugs and the misuse of explosives. He stressed that the importance of joint efforts in eradicating these harmful activities to ensure that the safety and well-being of Kenyans is maintained.
This morning we have come here because of the consignment which is before us, which was found in a residential house at an area by the name Tarakwiti in Esbania area. We have been doing surveillance, especially on that house, among others, and we succeeded in impounding in that house 14.5 sacks of cannabis sativa, that is bangi, and we were able also to arrest one suspect who is being processed through the DCI and should be appearing in court from today or another day which is convenient after we are through with the investigation. This is just one of the areas that we invaded and of course impounded this large consignment which has a street value of Kenya shillings 12,960,000 shillings. Pound 23 cartons of explosives, and on top of that we have also 4 drums, each 50 kilograms of cyanides, and lastly we also impounded 2 cartons of detonating wires. These are materials which are used in mining purposes, and the only thing that the transporters are doing, they are evading to pay taxes through the customs.
Right, it is exactly 24 minutes past the top of the hour. That's what we are taking a short commercial break here at Morning Live. This particular morning we'll be back with projects which have raised concerns among county leaders. One of the key issues under discussion is the demand for the Senate to reject the proposed budget cuts and seek a thorough explanation from the Treasury. According to the COG chair and Wajir Governor Ahmed Abdullahi, the only agreement reached between the COG and members of the parliament was the exclusion of the road maintenance levy, that is the RMLF, which remains a subject of an ongoing court case. Governors argue that counties have an equal right to access the RMLF as they are responsible for road construction. They highlight that the fuel levy is the same fund that supports both the national and county road development. However, the MPs have removed any allocation of RMLF and significantly reduced funds for various other donor-funded projects.
National Assembly just passed the County Government's Additional Allocation Act. First of all, we were shocked that there were two bills that were originated by either houses, by the two houses of Parliament. Senate had originated a bill, and National Assembly originated another bill. We have been discussing this issue at Summit and at IBEC, that the year is coming to an end and the County Additional Allocation Act has not been passed. Development partners who fund a lot of these projects, a lot of this funding in the County Additional Allocation Act are frustrated. So we're asking the Senate not to accept this bill. We're asking the Senate to pass the one that we had agreed. There's a protracted engagement that happens before we come to this stage of passing laws. We appear before Senate, we negotiate with the CRA, right? So I don't know who had an interest in fast-tracking the National Assembly bill as against the one of the Senate. Yeah. So we're asking the Senate to stand firm and pass the bill that we had agreed with them, because we appeared before the Senate. We appeared at IBEC. We discussed these things in IBEC. We agreed. We had taken a position as a Council of Governors that constitutionally only two types of roads are recognized: national trunk roads and county roads. So if you're going to tax Kenyans at the pump for the maintenance of roads, it's only fair that we follow the Constitution and give national government its share of those maintenance funds and give counties their share. If the national government wants to create another level of government through the constituency and give the MPs money to repair roads from their kitty or from their allocation, that's a constitutional question for all of Kenyans. There's nothing much we can do about it as governors.
Now, Nakuru County Government has entered into a partnership with the Dandelion, a non-profit organization, to provide specialized training for health workers and community volunteers involved in maternal and neonatal critical care. This initiative aims to reduce maternal deaths to the burden of maternal mortality, a significant concern for the county. Through the collaboration, nurses, midwives, and community health workers will be equipped with modern skills and competencies essentials for saving the lives of mothers and newborns. Haron Karanja, the administrator of Dandelion Africa, emphasized that the partnership will focus on improving the quality of care by offering refresher training, skill development, and mentorship for midwifery in the sub-county facilities, particularly for health providers dedicated to maternal and newborn health.
This training is inspired by a series of weekly meetings that we normally have to figure out what is causing maternal and perinatal deaths. So we thought skill development is one of the interventions that we can make in order to bring down the numbers. I think there's a full spectrum of reasons. Some of them are technical in terms of the capability of the nurses to deal with the real emergencies, and so the propensity is to refer. In the process of referring, there may be a delay. We don't have optimal ambulance capability in the county. So sometimes it takes long to refer the mothers, especially from the peripheral facilities, to Margaret Kenyatta here. And then we have a few staffing challenges which we must be honest about. Her Excellency the Governor has talked about the need to develop optimal staffing capability at the primary level, but also at the level 4 and 5. I think the bulk of our improvements oscillate around staffing. We have to almost double up the number of clinical team members that we have. Her Excellency the Governor has made a commitment to this, and we have very, very good support from the County Assembly, first of all, to ring-fence the budget for human resource, so that, one, we're able to promote nurses who are due. Two, we are able to replace the nurses and clinical officers and doctors who are leaving, because we are having quite a number seeking greener pastures. But as soon as they leave, can we replace them? So their budget is ring-fenced. And thirdly, and more importantly, is to be able to incrementally recruit so that you can place more nurses.
There are healthcare workers, over 30 healthcare workers on emergency obstetric care mentorship training. This will go along to improve maternal and neonatal indicators in the county. And this comes at a time when majority of the staff that were trained on EMOC are aging and are almost transiting. So now we are training younger generation that will continue with mentorship at the rural facilities to improve the rates of skill deliveries even at the hard-to-reach areas of Nakuru County.
Right, in a bid to mitigate the impacts of climate change and enhance resilience among vulnerable communities, 11 groups from Siaya County have received various farming products aimed at promoting climate-smart agriculture. These groups, which include people living with disabilities, are located near the shores of Lake Victoria and have been facing challenges due to the challenging climate. The project, funded by the Adaptation Fund through UNEP, focuses on building climate resilience in the Lake Victoria Basin. According to Hilda Luoga, the project officer of the Lake Victoria Basin Commission, the initiative seeks to strengthen the capacity of the communities to cope with climate challenges, particularly in agriculture.
Kifaa hichi ambacho tumepewa kitatusaidia sana katika kikundi chetu. Kwa mfano, hiki kifaa kitatusaidia kupasua mayai. Tukishapasua, vikundi vingine vitatuletea mayai na tutapasua, na hii itatupatia mapato katika kikundi. Tukishapata mapato, itatusaidia kiafya kwa kila mmoja kwa kikundi chetu. We are very grateful for the solar pump that we are now going to have a lot of vegetables around, and we are also going to have something in our pocket because we are going to sell our vegetables. We are also planning to plant trees because now we have the water pump, and our area will have a lot of trees that catches the rain.
Hili habari ya kupambana na mabadiliko ya tabia nchi umeshika kasi na unaendelea, na tunaomba tuzidi kushirikiana nao ili kaunti nzima la Siaya tuwe na community, tuwe na jamii ambalo liko sensitive kwa mambo ya mabadiliko ya tabia nchi.
Mradi wa adapting to climate change, it is meant to enhance resilience of the community in the Lake Victoria Basin. So the project total funding was $5 million from Adaptation Fund through UNEP. The project benefited 5 countries in the Lake Victoria Basin: Burundi, Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. In Siaya, the beneficiaries are 11 groups, and through Dalarieko, we were able to produce 8 solar pumping systems, and we were given to 4 groups.
Right, it is exactly 7 minutes past the top of the hour. That's what we take a short commercial break. We'll be back with the dailies today. We tell you what exactly the newspapers are saying. You're watching Morning Live on this 20th day of March 2025. My name is Macharia, and let's take a look on what's making headlines on the newspapers today. And I'm joined by the Daily Nation newspaper, the Standard newspaper, and the Star newspaper. We're just trying to take a look on what's really happening in matters governance of this country. Let's get started with the Daily Nation newspaper, dated today, the 20th of March 2025. And a story making headline on the Daily Nation is questionable. National Lands Commission has appealed against payout briefcase farm, awarded 1 billion shillings for state land. In a present case of double compensation, the taxpayers will be forced to pay more than 1 billion Kenya shillings to a city company for a parcel in Embakasi, for which the National Police Service had already been paid in 1.65 billion Kenya shillings when it was acquired for the standard gauge railway 8 years ago. Now, putting the Land Acquisition Tribunal on the spot. Of course, let's take a look on that particular story on page 4 of the Daily Nation. And taxpayers will be forced to pay more than 1 billion, of course, to a briefcase company for land in Nairobi and Embakasi area, which the NPS, that is the National Police Service, was compensated for about 1.65 billion Kenya shillings 8 years ago. Now, the latest award was made by the Land Acquisition Tribunal to Kalis Development Company Limited on February 7th, directing the National Land Commission to compensate the farm for the land acquired for the SGR. Now, this development raises questions about how the company could seek compensation for the same land that MPS was paid for in 2017 after verification by the NLC confirmed that the land belonged to the police. And of course, you've been seeing there has been a land tussle across the country. Of course, this year, of course, recently, last month, we saw Nairobi, UON, that is the University of Nairobi, had a disputed land in which they argue that the land is the UON's, belongs to the UON. And of course, in various parts of the country, including Mombasa County, has been battling a land tussle in various countries. Hope that will be resolved by the Environment and Lands Commission. And moving on, matters of security now. A state WhatsApp group thwarts attack on family by robbers. Now, neighbors to the rescue of the distressed family sending messages to the police, who arrive in the nick of time to relieve households from an agonizing ordeal. Now, that particular story, let's take a look at that particular story, of course, on page 3 of the Daily Nation. And in November 29th of 2024, Mr. Harrison Mohu and his family sat in the dining room savoring a meal and potatoes and beef. Now, it was one of the family's favorite, and they laughed heartily. Then something happened that brought the fun to an abrupt end. Mr. Mohu and his family had a bang on the main door for the house in Echuka village. Subsequent bangs reverberated as the intruders attempted to breach his metal grilled door to gain access to the house. Now, what followed was erratic calls and cries from the family. His children subsequent bangs reverberated, of course, on the main door of Echuka village. Subsequent bangs reverberated. The intruders attempted to breach his metal grilled door. What followed were erratic calls and cries from the family. Now, his children hid and called neighbors for help. Even so, the assailants would have none of it. They persisted in their efforts to break the metallic door. As luck would have it, some neighbors had the distress calls. One told, of course, the Daily Nation that he raised the alarm through a security WhatsApp group, alerting the officer in charge of Tigoni Police Station, Christine Mundanya. Law enforcement officers arrived at the scene almost immediately, and the housebreakers fled. Now, this shows how social media play critical parts in, of course, curbing crimes. And of course, yesterday we had a story about a TikTok chief using TikTok to curb crime in his area, right? That's a great move. Moving on to matters economy, and Mbadi to MPs tells MPs that will not stop borrowing. National Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi has said the government will not stop borrowing, despite senators raising questions of how huge the loans borrowed by the state are spent. International development comes even as the minister stated that the National Treasury is set to conduct a forensic audit of the country's public debt stock, currently at 11.2 trillion. Appearing before the Senate Finance and Budget Committee on Tuesday, CS Mbadi maintained not to stop seeking loans from international lending institutions since it has services to offer. Now, according to budget policy statement for the fiscal year ended in June 2026, the government proposes to borrow 684.2 billion Kenya shillings from the domestic market and 146.8 billion from the external markets to bridge the project deficit for the financial year under the review. Now, the shift from external borrowing is attributed to a reduction in receipts from the IMF program. Now, Kenya had set the foreign borrowing targeted for the financial year ending June 2025 at 168 billion. Mombasa Senator, that is Mohamud Faki, pressed the minister to explain to Kenyans, of course, how the huge loans taken by the government are being used, as they are questioning why the country is always in debt, despite the concerns over the usage of funds. All right. I don't know what you make of Mbadi's statement that the country will not stop borrowing. Start engaging us on our socials at EBN TV. Of course, that is on Facebook, and send us your feedback through our SMS line, that is 23059. And I'll be sampling your feedback, of course, as we continue with the program. Moving on, laundering. A U.S. agency sounds warning on dirty cash from Somalia. Now, the United States government has cautioned that unregulated trade between Kenya and Somalia facilitates money laundering by criminals. Of course, that's a story. You can get it on page 8 of the Daily Nation, dated today. And the U.S. has also placed under scrutiny for the informal international money transfer services upon the Somali residents in Kenya, citing their role in enabling money laundering by criminal involved in trafficking illegal narcotics, humans, weapons, wildlife, timber, charcoal, and minerals. According to the International Narcotics Control Strategy report of Volume 2, the U.S. government, through the Department of State's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, state that these services are prone to abuse by individuals seeking to remain anonymous while making illegal transaction. Of course, that's a challenge exists in tracking suspicious transaction within the mobile transfer sector. Right, moving on to matters education now, and KUCCPS are set to open their admissions portal before the end of the month. Now, students who qualified for the university admission in 2024 KCSE exams will soon start applying for placements, says Educational Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba on page 10 of the Daily Nation. And of course, we remember in matters students and funding and placement of the KCCPS, of course, you remember President William Ruto during his Nairobi tour said that the HELB, that is the money used to help students in universities to, of course, continue their learning, will be disbursed by the end of that particular week. And we are to see that being implemented. Of course, let's take a look on the KUCCPS to open portal for the admissions by the end of the month. Now, the 246,391 students who qualified for the university admissions in the 2024 KCSE, that is the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education examinations, will finally start the process of applying and a placement for the Kenya Universities and Colleges Placement Service, that is the KUCCPS. Now, the CEO of the KUCCPS, Dr. Agnes Masiwahome, says that the agency has received details of the available capacity from universities and will announce the exact date once the board approves the process. The academic calendar for most university begins between August and September of this year. While appearing before the Committee on Education on the National Assembly on Wednesday, the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Julius Ogamba, said that the portal would be opened before the end of the month. Of course, that it is a reprieve for, of course, students who are yearning to join the universities to continue, of course, with their studies. And a doctor who died at KNH had liver problems. Of course, that is matters health. Dr. Ndege Chacha, whose body was detained at Kenyatta National Hospital over unpaid medical bills, died battling a silent illness while harboring dreams of marriage and building a home. Now, the young doctor, described as meticulous and compassionate, was his family's breadwinner and a self-sponsored student when the liver complications claimed his life on March 14th. According to Kezia, Dr. Chacha's health was problems began with stomach aches and occasional bloating, with the initially managed by medications. His conditions deteriorated rapidly, leading him through several medical facilities from Kitengela West Hospital, where liver problems were first suspected, to Halisi Hospital for scans, and then Upper Hill to consult a doctor, where he was UN Student Health Services before being transferred to KNH on March 11, just 3 days before his death. And of course, rest in peace, Dr. Chacha. Moving on, Ruto readies to face a hostile Mount Kenya. Now, President William Ruto will host some Mount Kenya MPs at State House today, following up to last week meetings by Deputy President Kithure Kindiki in preparation for their seven-day tour to the region. Now, the extensive tour scheduled for the end of this month or early April has already begun to raise political temperatures in the region that swept President William Ruto to power in 2022. Race before turning hostile following his bitter falling out with former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Now, it is politically significant by President since the impeachment of Mr. Gachagua last October. And of course, yesterday, Ndindi Nyoro, in his constituency, that is Kiharo, went to launch a program and decided that there were no administrators, officials at the facility where he was going to launch, raising concerns over what he termed as it is politically infiliated. Of course, that story of President William Ruto get it on page 7 of the Daily Nation, dated today. And the plan, page 7 of the Daily Nation says President William Ruto will host, of course, Mount Kenya MPs, and the choice is important as it will be the first to the region by the president since the impeachment of Mr. Gachagua in October. Now, the former deputy president has become a fierce critic of the government as he campaigns to have the region abandon President William Ruto's United Democratic Alliance, that is the UDA. Now, Mr. Gachagua is expected to launch a political party in May as he prepares for the general elections in 2027. Allies of the former deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua, says that Dr. Ruto to explain to locals why some MPs from the region were dropped from parliamentary leadership. They also plan to challenge the president on some of the campaign promises he made that have not been fulfilled. A lawmaker allied to President William Ruto told the nation that today's meeting has been confirmed by the State House official. The officials, however, described the meeting as a moving target since no specific time has been set. The meeting is said to happen in Karen on Thursday, bringing together 54 MPs from regions during the with Professor Kithure Kindiki reportedly asked them to outline some of the projects that are ready to be launched. Of course, we'll be looking forward if the Mount Kenya MPs will turn out, and of course, what is there that particular meeting with Mount Kenya MPs at State House, Nairobi today. Of course, we'll be keeping tabs with that particular story, and we'll be bringing you in a subsequent bulletins later on in the day. And of course, moving on to the corridors of justice, 3 Mexicans were not successful in their meth production at the time security agencies pounced. And between April and September of 2024, former Mexican police officer Alvarado Elvera led a team with 2 of his compatriots in setting up a clandestine drug laboratory or a clan club in a remote pocket of the sleepy Namanga border town. Alongside Carlos Pedro de Ignacio Morales Alvarez, Mr. Vera spent 4 months setting up the equipment, receiving chemicals and trying to produce methamphetamine. Of course, that is a drug. The trio, who was among several individuals whose activities were unwittingly were just about to lead several investigative agencies across the world to a critical operation of Mexican cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generacion. Of course, that's a story. You can get it on the last page of the Daily Nation, dated today, the 20th day of March, of course, of 2025. Right, let's move on to the Standard newspaper, dated today, the 20th day of March, and story making headlines on the Standard newspaper today: pain, suffering, and fury. Now, more than 1 million teachers, police and their dependents have been left to their own devices after hospitals refused to treat them on government insurance. The service providers say the Social Health Authority is yet to pay debts and have no option but to shut their doors on the officers, tutors, and their families during their time of need if they cannot pay cash for treatment. That story, you can get it on page 5. And of course, yesterday there was a protest in Eldoret. Of course, we had that particular story from Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital. Doctors, or rather health workers, were decrying that the government insurance, the health government insurance fund they use, it's not working. Now, the High Court on Tuesday barred the Judiciary Service, that is matters corridors of justice, the Judicial Service Commission, that's the JSC, from presenting its case on whether the cases filed by Deputy Justice Philomena Mwilu and Justice Ibrahim should be stayed. The Commission's lawyer, Issa Mansour, said he would argue the Commission's case using existing judgment and the law. Now, senior law Paul Nyamondi supported Mansour's argument, and he said JSC was the main party in the case and urged the court to allow all parties to give their side of the story as the cases involved senior judges. Now, Nyamondi was representing Dari Limited and former Arieda Member of Parliament Raphael Tuju, who are among those who want to overhaul the Apex Court. Nevertheless, the judge held that none of the parties who did not follow his directive to file submissions would be allowed to present their case. They have relied on the High Court ruling by the Justice Eric Ogola, Fred Mugambi, and Anthony Mrima, which allowed Parliament to complete the impeachment process for former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. I say that the court should exercise restraint as no decision had been made to send the judges' files to the president to empanel a tribunal to remove or dismiss the petitions, having had also petitioned to remove all the 7 Supreme Court judges. Right? Now, let's take a look on matters healthcare. You know, health workers, that is the police, teachers, and health workers are saying that the government insurance fund, of course, the hospitals have refused to treat the civil workers, that is include police, teachers, and health workers, to treat them by the government insurance. Let's take a look on why is that. Now, teachers and police officers are suffering in silence as crisis hits their medical insurance covers. Now, the health of more than 1 million teachers, police officers, and their dependents is at risk as hospitals deny them services to delayed capitation. For 7 months now, hospitals have gone without payments under the state-sponsored medical covers, forcing some facilities to turn away patients who cannot pay in cash. Now, the contracted hospitals are owed 11 billion for teachers' cover, which has left 403,522 tutors and 969,638 dependents at a loss. Similarly, the schemes for over 110,000 police officers and their dependents under the national service, the National Police Service, that this is the MPS, and the Kenya Prison Service are dysfunctional. Now, at 6 hospitals have suspended services to teachers under the Teacher Service Commission, that is the TSC medical scheme, in Bomet County. For example, stated that it stopped offering medical services on credit effective February 1st of this year. Other affected hospitals include Kisii Referral Hospital and the Riale Hospital in Uasin Gishu County. Hospitals blame the situation on the non-payment by defunct National Hospitals Insurance Fund, its successor Social Health Authority and Medical Administrators Kenya Limited, which administers the Teachers Medical Scheme through Minet Kenya. Now, of course, in that list of the hospitals that has halted their services to civil workers that include police officers, teachers, and the others, yesterday, the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital in Eldoret also downed their services to the civil workers. Of course, President William Ruto said that let's give this social health, this SHA medical cover or something, time to, to effectively work. And again, this week, in the recent days, who was the CS of health, that is Nakumichas, also said that SHA scheme is a good scheme, that people should give it time to operate. Now, the question is, will patients wait for the scheme to work, putting their health at risk? Well, let's move on massive debt. Hospitals, of course, are owed 11 billion under the teachers' cover, affecting, that is, for the 403,522 teachers and 969,638 dependents, and the blame on insurance providers. The crisis is attributed to non-payment of the defunct National Hospital Insurance Fund, that is the NHIF, in its successor Social Health Authority and the Medical Administrators Kenya Limited. Now, delayed payments, hospitals are denying services to over 1 million teachers, police officers, and their dependents due to unpaid capitation for 7 months. Right to the healthcare at risk. Teachers and police officers warn that prolonged delays violate their rights to healthcare and dignity, affecting morale and productivity. Hospitals withdrawing services. At least 6 hospitals, including Tenwek Hospital and Kisii Referral, have stopped offering medical services to teachers on credit. All right, that's what the Standard newspaper today had in store for us. Let's take a look on what's making headlines on the Star newspaper, dated today, the 20th of March, 2025. And Kenyans forced into sex slavery. Of course, that's a sob story there at the Star newspaper. And that particular story, you can get it on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper dated today. Now, a report by the U.S. State Department has exposed how women and girls have been trafficked to work in brothels and valued in Middle East of Asia. Now, in 2024, Trafficking in Persons report, the U.S. also found traffickers are recruiting foreigners to sex work in Kenya, painting a country as a hotbed for human trafficking. Now, recruitment agencies were found to facilitate the exploitation of Kenyans in the Middle East, Central and Southeast Asia, Europe, Africa, and North America. It has singled out 9 Middle East giants, among them Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar, as countries where the practice is prevalent. Others are Lebanon, Kuwait, Bahrain, Iran, Iraq, and Oman. The new report may shine as fresh spotlight or frenzied bid to travel to the Gulf at a time when the government has also ramped up its labor migration efforts. Now, the New York Times on Sunday reported that 274 Kenyan workers, most of them women, had died in Saudi Arabia alone over the past 5 years. Now, this story is very alarming. I don't know if this is equated to the lack of employment in Kenya. I don't know what you make of that. Start engaging us on our socials. Why are our young countrymen engaging into sex slavery? Of course, abroad, you've heard that in Qatar, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, of course, the numbers of, or rather the statistics of women who have died in Saudi Arabia in matters sex slavery. Of course, that's so alarming, and maybe the government should consider addressing the unemployment, of course, to at least curb these situations. Moving on, Kalonzo, Eugene Wamalwa, Mon cop killed in Haiti. Of course, yesterday, Kalonzo Musyoka and Eugene Kalonzo Musyoka, of course, it's the Wiper Party leader, was in attendance in the cop killed in Haiti last month, I guess, and his burial was held yesterday. Now, 8 countries, among them Kenya, Nigeria, and Lesotho, could soon run out of HIV drugs following U.S. government's recent decision to pause foreign aid. The World Health Organization has said, however, the Health Ministry says the country has enough ARVs to last 4 months. Of course, you'll remember that the U.S. government halted their services to providing aid to Africa, of course, in matters healthcare. Let's take a look on that particular story. Now, however, Kenya's Ministry of Health says the country has enough ARVs to last for 4 months. More shipments are on the way, raising Kenya's ARVs stock to enough levels until June. Now, the U.S. President Donald Trump announced the freeze on his first day in office in January as part of a review into government spending. Now, WHO, and that is the World Health Organization, says Chief Tedros said at a press conference on Monday it could also lead to more than 10 million additional cases of HIV and 3 million HIV-related deaths. He added that, noting that this has, and I quote, more than tripled the number of the deaths last year. Nigeria, Kenya, Lesotho, Sudan, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Haiti and Ukraine would run out of life-saving antiretroviral medicines, that's the ARVs, in the coming months. That, of course, Tedros, that is the CEO of the World Health Organization. Of course, the Ministry of Health, led by not Susan Nakumisha, but Deborah Barasa, who is the current CS of Health, said that the Ministry of Health in Kenya has enough ARVs to last for at least 4 months. I don't know, after the 4 months, what will happen to Kenya and the patients with the patients who have the virus, the HIV virus. Of course, We hope that the situation will be resolved. Moving on, chili market on fire igniting calls. Agricultural experts have confirmed a growing demand for chilling preppers. In response, seed developers are introducing new locally tailored chili varieties to meet this rising demand. Of course, that particular story, you can get it on page 7 of on the Star newspaper, dated the 20th day of March 2025. And of course, moving on, because I'm a sports person, let's take a look on what's making headlines in the world of sports. And of course, there is a safari rally systems to go as WRC safari revs off at KICC today. Now, today all roads leads to Naivasha and the Nakuru highway for matters WRC safari rally. Now, 5-time safari rally champion Carl Tudo expects a grueling world rally championship event after pushing 5-kilometer shakedown at Sleeping Warrior on Wednesday morning. The shakedown, a crucial pre-rally test on a designated track, allows teams to fine-tune their setups before the high-stakes competition set to be flagged off today by President William Ruto at City Hallway. However, Trudeau and his longtime navigator, Team Jesop, it was a rough ride in their Ford Fiesta RC2 with mechanical issues surfacing early. Right now, President William Ruto, of course, today is expected also to flag off the safari rally at City Hall, where, of course, we'll be keeping tabs with that particular story and we'll be bringing you in a subsequent bulletins. Now, WRC are set, and so are we, to bring you the latest on the rally on our subsequent bulletins in the week, or rather during the weekend. Of course, I don't know whether you are going to the WRC or not, and if you're not, we'll be keeping tabs with that, telling you what exactly is happening across the 47 counties and, of course, across the borders. My name is Martin Macharia. It is exactly 14 minutes past the top of the hour. That note, we wrap up our program this particular morning. You've been watching The Drift with me, Martin Macharia, and at that note, let's wrap up our program, and we'll meet again later on in the day as we continue keeping you up to speed with the latest from across the 47 counties and, of course, across the borders. Do have yourself a good morning, and your faith today is coming up in a few. Do stay tuned in for that. Now, my name is Martin Macharia signing off. Do have yourself a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of your viewing, and as always, let's meet again when God says we do.